In this lesson, we will focus on tools that make work in DaVinci Resolve easier, whether we do technical or artistic grading. In the previous lesson, I introduced the gallery. It serves as the storage for color corrections of individual shots. That means that this whole node structure is stored for the shot. In the gallery, we have an album labeled Stills 1 and one power grade titled Power Grade 1. The difference between an album and a power grade is that grades stored in album are displayed in the current project only. If we open a new project, the albums are empty. And grades stored in power grade are tied to the user, not the project. That means that all grades stored in power grade will be displayed in every project. So the user can create a library of favored grades, which will be available whenever working on a particular project. We save a grade into an album with a right-click, selecting Grab Still. Only an image is displayed in the gallery, but in fact, the clip's whole node structure is stored here. If we'd like to store all grades from the entire timeline, we use Grab All Stills command, and can consequently choose if we want to save visually first or the middle frame of the video. Numbers appear under the images. These help with orientation. The first one is the video track number, the second is the video's sequence number on the timeline, and the third is the version number in the gallery. We see that the Grab All Stills command in fact saved the first video once again. That's why it has a 2 at the end. Since in the meantime we haven't made any adjustments in grading, the stored videos are identical and therefore one can be erased. We do so with the delete command. Often when grading, we need to experiment and search for the optimum grade for a particular shot. If we save all our attempts in the gallery, we no longer need to worry about losing our ideas. They can be recalled at any time. If, for example, we decide that the first shot will look better if it is only slightly saturated, nothing stops us from trying it out. Just make the change and save the result in the gallery. That means that now there are two versions of the first shot's grade stored in the gallery. If we wish to return to the original grade, we select Add Correction. This applies to each stored grade, of course. The stored grades can also be labeled if needed, especially if we intend on using them with future projects. We move them into power grade using the mouse. For better orientation, we can use a larger gallery display. In this larger window, we find additional gallery areas with grades, or all user presets supplied by the manufacturer are located here as well. Memories is similar to albums, though memories can be assigned to keyboard shortkeys or activated directly in the grading panel, so they are handy for quick copying of grades. We can have several albums and power grades and can individually label them as well. The stored grades can also be mutually compared. If I want to compare versions of the first shot, I use Play Still, or a double click. Our current grade is displayed on the left, and the grade we'd like to compare is on the right. Using the mouse, we move the area that divides the two shots. And we're not limited to just horizontal division, but can make vertical divisions here as well. Here the comparison can be deactivated. I have mentioned before that grading means balancing consecutive videos. Comparison, or reference, can be used when we want to balance two consecutive clips. Let's move to the fifth clip. Then, double-clicking the grade stored for the fourth clip, we activate reference. This way we are able to adjust consecutive clips more precisely. There is a way to display more than two videos at once in the viewer. For example, if we activate split screen, all selected clips can be displayed simultaneously. And the clip that we are currently grading is marked by a white rim. There are other ways of working with various grade versions. If we right-click on a clip on the timeline, we see that we're currently working with the local version 1. However, we can create multiple grade versions for each of our shots. We see on the timeline that for this shot, version 2 is activated. If we'd like to return to working on version 1, we open the menu and select version 1. We can also use keyboard shortcuts, which makes switching back and forth between individual versions faster. The advantage of working with grade versions this way is the option of consecutive export of multiple or of all our grade versions in the delivery panel. Grade versions are divided into local and shared ones, called remote. In DaVinci settings, under Color, we can determine the version to be created for each new video on the timeline. If we opt for the creation of local versions, our grades will be associated with only the individual shot on the timeline. To see the difference quickly, I'll make the shot significantly colder. Let's say we create another timeline that will contain the same clip from the media pool as our current timeline. This clip is still in its original state, ungraded, since in the previous timeline we've used local grading. That means we may potentially want to grade it again. If we opt for remote grading, all copies of a shot are graded simultaneously, which means that we would see this shot as cold like it was on the previous timeline. I can demonstrate this on clip number 4. This one contains a local grade. Let's change it to remote grade version 1. We see an R marked on the timeline, which means that we are now using a shared remote grade. Using add correction, we copy the local grade into the remote one and make this shot equally as cold. We move to timeline 2. Let's add the shot into it. Now the shot has an identical shared remote grade in both timelines. But we're never limited to only one type of grading. During work, we can freely switch between local and remote grading depending on which workflow is most appropriate for our project. In this lesson, we discussed some additional useful tools in DaVinci Resolve. We examined the gallery into more detail, compared 2 or more videos, and created local as well as shared grade versions.